Peter Meyer is a sellout Republican. Peter Meyer supports harmful transgender legislation that would destroy girls' sports. He thinks it's just fine to let men take opportunities and scholarships away from girls. Meyer's bill would put men in girls' locker rooms, men in women's prisons, and even men in battered women's shelters. Peter Meyer is selling out our families and putting our daughters at risk. Would you trust Meyer with your daughter?
Professor Bridges, you said several times, you've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing that.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist.
I'm denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies?
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get pregnant.
So you are denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you?
Absolutely.
Or are they also treated like this? Where
No,
they're told that they're opening up people to violence?
We have a good time in my class. You should join.
I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot just in this exchange.
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
In Massachusetts right now, those crisis pregnancy centers that are there to fool people who are looking for pregnancy termination help outnumber true abortion clinics by 3 to 1. We need to shut them down here in Massachusetts, and we need to shut them down all around the country. You should not be able to torture a pregnant person like that.
Wow. It's Wednesday, the 13th of July, the year of our Lord 2022. You're in battleground, and man, it's the battleground that gets more intense every day. These spots are popping up all over. That was Professor Bridges and Josh Hawley. We had it on yesterday's show, but it's kind of metastasized. It's gone super viral around and I had it up on Getter also earlier this morning. But you had then Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, I got to get, and I had to reach out to Liz Yore and to Terry Schilling. Liz is jammed up. Schilling's a good cover bid on this American Principles Project, and he had that amazing, tough ad at the beginning. So I want you to just walk me through all of it. Talk to me first about, let me start at the end with, what is Elizabeth Warren talking about? Is the Right to Life movement, is Schilling, are you and Liz Yore and all the great Right to Life fighters, are you torturing pregnant? Is that what the senator said? Stop torturing pregnant women?
We're trying to trick women into having babies, right? We're trying to trick them into not going down that tragic route of having a doctor kill their baby for money and make money off of them. It's terrible, Steve. It's just the worst thing you can possibly imagine.
What is the pregnancy crises centers, which obviously the Right to Life movement have done? Explain exactly what that is and what is its objective. What is it meant to do?
So what was happening in the 90s, the pro-life community realized that Planned Parenthood was deceiving women. And women would go into the abortion clinics that are Planned Parenthoods, and they would talk them into getting abortions. So what the pro-life community did was they started choosing secular names for their clinics to help women that were in crisis. So they would call them Women's Choice Center, Women's Health Clinics. And what would happen is women who were scared in their pregnancies, didn't know what to do, didn't know how they were support their baby, they were actually giving a full choice. They were allowed to leave. They were allowed to go down to the Planned Parenthood, down the clinic, but they were also they were also able to choose life and to know that there was support mechanisms for them if they wanted to have their baby. These guys want to shut it down because they don't want people having babies. They don't want them having families. It kills the Democratic coalition. It takes away power from the government.
So what happens? What has happened? What happens with these pregnancy centers? Why are they called pregnancy crisis centers? And why have they now become like so controversial in the last 48 hours? This huge controversy about these and to Elizabeth Warren. Remember, let's put it in perspective. Elizabeth Warren is running for president. She's already getting it geared up. She sees a vertical for herself. She sees a lane, and that lane is both her kind of, I think, phony populism or, going after Wall Street, which I wish she did, tougher. But her populism coupled with these cultural issues, she sees a real openings for herself. So this was strategic of what she did today. So what are the pregnancy crisis centers? Why have they become so controversial just even over the last 3 or 4 days? And what is Elizabeth Warren trying to do here, Terry?
Well, ever since we overturned Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs decision, the common talking point from the left is a total lie. They say that that conservatives and Republicans and pro-lifers, we don't want to take care of these women. We don't want to help them raise their kids. That's what these crisis pregnancy centers do. They provide formula. They provide health care. They provide diapers. Whatever these moms need that they're struggling with, they connect them to counselors to help them talk through their problems. They find financial backers to help them afford these kids. If they need to, they find adoptive parents. These are the crisis pregnancy centers that are a threat. So what they're trying to do is make their claims a reality. They want it so that there is no option, so that their claims can have some validity, that conservatives and pro-lifers don't want to help out these moms. That's why they want to shut them down. They want the power. They want the control.
As this has been sent back to the state legislatures, and each state legislature will pass this, and I don't see a federal law taking place. I know some right to life guys are focused on it. That's fine, but I do think the states are going to at least, for some interim period of time, making their own decisions. So places like New York State, California will become, and Gavin Newsom is making one of the centerpieces of his presidential run. His nascent presidential run is to make California the paragon of all the virtues from the progressive left. He wants to make it a sanctuary state for abortions. Is the right to life movement's strategy in those states, now that it'll be banned in Texas and Mississippi and states in the South and up in the in the plains, in the Intermountain West, as California, New York, or Massachusetts, will you start to see more pregnancy crisis centers? And so you guys are going to try to drive this to give people a choice, but also really step into what would be a political firestorm?
That's exactly right, Steve. The pro-life movement has been ready for this moment, and they've been building towards this moment for the past 50 years. They've been building these clinics. The demand is going to skyrocket for these clinics. There's going to be an even bigger need for these crisis pregnancy centers to provide more resources. And I know that there's a great expansion plan going on through many pro-life groups, the Susan B. Anthony List, Students for Life. They're all organizing, and they're planning on expanding. It's absolutely beautiful. It's exactly what Americans do in times of crisis and times of trouble, is we respond to these big problems.
Before we leave this topic, how is Elizabeth Warren? She's saying they are torture centers. You must stop torturing these women, and she's demanding they be shut down in Massachusetts. What's the over and under on that?
Well, what she's saying essentially is that women that go to get an abortion are really stupid and weak. What she's saying is that what happens is these women that want an abortion go into these crisis pregnancy centers and they get talked out of it. They get talked into having their baby and taking care of it, and they get tricked and fooled, and that they're too weak to once they realize that this is not an abortion clinic, that it's a pro-life center and they're going to help them have their baby, they're too weak to leave. It's a very pessimistic view about her constituents and about women in general. Women are very strong. They know what they're doing. Sometimes they get scared and they need that reinforcement. They need that strengthening and that encouragement. And that's what these crisis pregnancy centers do, is they empower women. They encourage them and they tell them, You can do this. Millions of women have had crisis pregnancies before. You're not the only one. And here's a whole group of people that are going to help you get through this. We're here for you. We're going to walk you through this every step of the way. She hates that because it is against their narrative that abortion is mandatory and abortion is necessary and that we absolutely need it. Abortion won't exist if people know that these crisis pregnancy centers actually provide all of the resources available. No mom actually wants to kill their baby. They do it as a last resort because they don't have the support structures. These crisis pregnancy centers cut at the heart of that.
Okay, I want to go to two more things where I got you. One, Professor Bridges and Josh Hawley, we've played that now a couple times in the show. It lays out, go to the Title IX and your call to action. I want to play, by the way, if Memphis can get ready to play the Peter Meyer ad again, I'm going to call for that one more time. So Memphis, just be ready. But let's get to Title IX. Explain to our audience, Bridges and Hawley, there's an unbridgeable gap there, right? Now, how is that playing through this Title IX and the call to action that American Principles Project and Heritage Action is asking for right now?
So what's happening? So there are two separate events. Bridges was in testifying before the Senate, and she was questioned by Hawley. It was actually on the abortion issue, and she was questioned about this. And Hawley brought up the idea that men can have babies, which is something that the left believes because they believe men can have babies, they can get pregnant, which we all know is crazy. But he was holding her accountable to that. But that's at the heart and soul of the Title IX changes that Cardona wants to make at the Department of Education. So the Department of Education announced yesterday a new set of regulations that they're getting ready to implement where they add on gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation into non-discrimination statutes in Title IX. Why that's a nightmare is because that means they're going to be putting boys in our girls' sports, boys in our girls' locker rooms and private spaces, in the showers, all of that. They're going to go after kids that don't use the right pronouns. They're going to criminalize basic truth and the people that promote basic truth. And they're definitely going to go after the parents. So what we've done is we've been promoting the action page from Heritage Action. It's on their website.
Hang on. Whoa, slow down. You're saying the Democratic Party, this is in this title, I think it's 700 pages. This part of the Title IX, or this reinterpretation of which was women's sports, you're actually saying this is in there, and the Biden administration is, everything you just listed is actually in this, and they're trying to push this, given all the political fallout they had in Loudoun County. I mean, Youngkin's the governor of Virginia because of this. You could argue that the judges that were in Pennsylvania, the towns we took over in Connecticut, everything in the fall of 2021 was around this, and they didn't read that signal. They're pushing this forward with the midterms coming up, sir.
You have to think of the left now as religious zealots. They are willing to die for this cause. They have internalized it. They think that transgenderism and transgender rights are the human rights battle of our century, the civil rights. That's actually what Joe Biden said. He said that transgender is the civil rights issue of our era, right? So they really believe it. And here's the big thing, Steve, is that it's an Achilles heel, right? Even if the Democrat disagrees with it and doesn't think it's good, they can't abandon it because they'll lose their base. They've radicalized their base. All of this stuff about, you're erasing trans people. You're killing trans people by denying that men can have babies and men can get abortions. You're killing them. That has riled up their base, and now their base believes it. So if they start moderating at all on this stuff, they're going to get their butts whooped even more. So now they're in a saving motion where they're trying to just keep their base together to where they don't lose them. If they moderate at all, Steve, their base is gone, and the midterms will go from 60 seats to 100. That's just how midterms work. It's about base turnout. And winning over those moderates. They've already lost the moderates. The moderates and independents are leaving them in droves because of inflation, the economy, and all this crazy cultural stuff. So if they moderate on this and don't start delivering wins, what are the big wins that Biden's actually delivered? It's all cultural. I mean, they've spent a ton of money, but he's driven the economy into the ground. The only thing they can do now to save themselves is to ratchet up the culture wars and to go even more extreme to try and get as many of their base voters out to vote.
Give me how do people get to either American Principles or Heritage Action, and what specifically do you need? I want this to be a call to action. What do you specifically need people to do?
So go to the Heritage Action website. It's just heritageaction.com. and sign they have a whole spreadsheet where you can submit comments. Sorry, not a spreadsheet, but an action page where you can submit comments on these regulations. Steve, the thing is, they can't just implement these new regulations. There's a public comment period. And these bureaucrats at the Department of Education have to review every single one of them before they can implement any policy changes. So what we needed to do is to get thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people to submit comments opposing these new rule changes that the Department of Education is doing to delay it to where they can't implement it before we take back power in Congress. Then we can start cutting the funding. Then we can really start battling these guys because we'll have power. We could subpoena them. We could make their lives a living hell. But we need the public support right now to fill out these public comments opposing it.
This is the administrative state. You're telling me they don't have to change the law. They actually have the rules making. See, ladies and gentlemen, this is about deconstructing the administrative state. This is what we have to stop, where you have the administrative state bureaucrats can just take the law and then radically change it and put out for public comments and then just come back and do it. This is they can rule by fiat. So this is a core fight right now for the administrative state. You want everybody to go to Heritage Jackson? Is that where they are? And go to the action page and everything will be self-explanatory from that?
Yep, you literally just click a button. They walk you through how to tweet about it, how to submit the public comments, and they have all the facts there.
Okay, Captain Bannon, I want everybody in our live chats right now all over this. We're obviously going to spend more time with you because this is not, it's sounds insane, but it's reality, and you gotta counter this. You got to step up to it. Okay, I want to can I play the Peter Meyer? Because I want you to explain to me, because I saw Nancy Mace on this morning, and I can't get my head around this. The ad is amazing. I want to play the ad one more time, and then I want you to tell me, Schilling, what in the hell are you talking about? Let's play the ad.
Peter Meyer is a sellout Republican. Peter Meyer supports harmful transgender legislation that would destroy girls' sports. He thinks it's just fine to let men take opportunities and scholarships away from girls. Meyer's bill would put men in girls' locker rooms, men in women's prisons, and even men in battered women's shelters. Peter Meyer is selling out our families and putting our daughters at risk. Would you trust Meyer with your daughter?
Okay, I am no fan of Peter Meyer, and I'm no fan of Nancy Mace and the rest of these people that voted for either the J6 fiasco or the impeachment. However, what has Peter Meyer done? What bill are you talking about? And have Republicans actually supported this and sponsored it?
So this is the Fairness for All Act, Steve, and it's the Republican version of the Equality Act. It would put sexual orientation and gender identity all throughout civil rights law. So that's everything that the Department of Education is doing. That's just Title IX. This bill that Peter Meyer supports would put gender identity all throughout our civil rights law, and it would leave it up to the courts to determine where all the lines are drawn. This is a total nightmare bill, Steve, and we have to make him pay a price for it. Meyer, this is the same bill that Nancy Mace was supporting, the Fairness for All Act. It's a nightmare for all act is really what it is. So we have to make him pay a political price for it. We're going to be running at least $50,000 worth of campaign ads against him. I want to ratchet that up. The election's in about 2 weeks. And there's a great pro-family candidate running against him, John Gibbs. He's an amazing guy. He's a big family pledge signer, and he's absolutely great. But this is what these elections are all about. They're issue-driven, and Peter Meyer is a nightmare for our daughters, and we can't trust him.
John Gibbs, I want to make an announcement. I think John Gibbs is going to be here with Steve Cortez on Friday. We're going to try to work that up. I think we got John Gibbs and Steve Cortez, maybe even in studio or at least by Skype. Cortez, I think, we're going to try to get here. Gibbs is I think, former missionary, part of the Trump administration, but was also, I think, a missionary in Japan. Doing an incredible job there. Just a terrific guy. This thing is fairness. Well, I got to have you back on that act and go through the whole thing. Terry, you're doing yeoman's work. I can't thank you enough. Really appreciate you coming on the War Room. Make sure everybody goes to Heritage Action. We'll get all over top of the work we have to do today, sir. Thank you very much, Terry Schilling.
Thanks, Steve.
Schilling, you remember his analysis of the case is religious zealous. There's something also with the transgender that leads into the transhumanism. There's something going on here. And next week, we're going to try to get, or maybe even before the end of the weekend, get Joe Allen on here and start talking about this. I think Schilling's onto something. I want to bring on, look, You got J6, you got a lot of stuff going on, and I got to tell you, over the 4th of July weekend, we one of our sponsors, we talked about this on the election on electionfund.com. But can we get Jay Ellis up? Jay, the feedback I got on the game was absolutely unbelievable of people that actually learned. And they had read a lot of the reports. They watched the War Room. They went on Fox. They saw other things. But they didn't really start to understand really what people were starting to talk about until they started to play the game. You really have nailed it, I think, in that people said, look, not only was it enjoyable, but most importantly for them, they were able to understand exactly when people talk about. They got nomenclature. And a lot of these folks have been pushing it out to their friends who are not fans of Trump. I think you've got something here. Tell people about this game and tell them why it's important.
Well, I mean, basically what we did, Steve, is we wanted to create a delivery mechanism to basically get facts out. All right. Facts, I mean, whatever you think about the election, this game gives you the facts, and in a way that you can share with friends, with family, with anybody on the opposite side of the political aisle that has been gaslighting you since day one. All right. And it does it in a fun and engaging way. All we wanted to do was stop the nonsense, create a fun, atmosphere, deliver facts, deliver videos. I mean, we have an interactive game that you literally put your phone over a QR code and it shows you videos that have either been canceled, but I mean, they can't be refuted. And I mean, people are sick and tired of the cancel culture. They're sick and tired of it all. And we wanted to create a delivery mechanism to combat it.
I got to tell you, it couldn't be more timely. They just announced Mike Lindell's got a court hearing next, I think on the 21st. So I think it's next Wednesday. We're going to be doing wall-to-wall coverage. Mike's going to be one of our special guests. We've got Jerome Revere, who the European member of parliament, that walked us through the French system of all paper ballots and all counted in one day by hand. He's going to join us as a guest with Mike Lindell this Saturday. Lindell's in court next week. They're going to finally present the information on the machines there. You've got this huge ruling in Wisconsin. They're still fighting in the courts in Georgia. What I love about this is that when we talk about all this stuff and people kind of hear it, but then they hear, hey, these guys are crazy. Trump's a nutcase. Here, and I can tell you after people play it, not only are they having fun, exciting, they come back to me and they go, wow, I didn't really ever understand what you were talking about, but I get it now. And here's the thing. The more people play it or become access to it, to the facts, Jay, you're really starting to not just turn people, but I think open minds that people say, this thing's got to be, we really got to take a look at this. Something's not right here. And it's not about Trump. There's something not right here about our election system, sir.
Well, I can tell you, we want this to be a difference maker going into the midterms. Okay. I mean, take a look at the razor thin margins that happen, whatever, Arizona, Georgia, etc. If we can just change, if we can get 1 million of these games out to the households in America, we can be a force multiplier and change literally, because people are going to see the facts. I mean, you can't refute it. And not only that, it's fun to do. So, we want to be a difference maker. And we think we've got a mechanism that can do it. And, I want you to do a call to action. I want you to do all that because it's a difference maker. It really is. And it's a difference maker in a fun way.
Go to Election Fund, all one word, electionfund.com. Here's what I want you to do is get the game and play it with people in your circle that have, watch the worm or understand the worm, understand perspective. Once you get it, though, I want you to expand out that concentric cone to people, your colleagues, your friends, family, people in your neighborhood that don't. And you're going to start to see, this is what I call the awakening. It's very powerful. And I know this from people who play it. Look, the option you've had in the worm is go to the Navarro report or go to the Gableman report or read the minority opinions or see some of the summaries it has, the great articles. Nothing is like doing it. Here you're actually doing it and it'll resonate with you. Jay, one more time, how do people get to the website? How do they get the game?
All right. So, Steve, thanks for it's www.electionfun.com. Okay. And then we've got, like I said, we're partnered with War Room. We're thrilled to do it. Electionfun.com. Buy the game. We even have a box on the website that says Punk a Liberal Friend. Send any of your liberal friends a game. Have some fun doing it. And let's go. Let's be a difference maker for the midterms coming up. Oh, hey, Steve, one more thing.
Jay. Yes, sir. Sure. Yes, sir.
Okay, real quick. CPAC is in Dallas coming up in a couple of weeks. So we hope to make a real splash there as well. So, just wanted to throw that in.
I'm coming to CPAC. The War Room is going to be there, and we're going to have a big thing around the game. This is one of the reasons we're coming. Victor Orban's been invited. President Trump's going to, and we're going to go down there. One of the reasons is the game. We're going to Texas. When all the War Room posse joins us, is going to be incredible. You're going to have fun. We get to meet each other, hang out. Jay, thank you so much. Great service to your country, a true patriot. Thank you so much, Jay Ellis. Really the inventor of this incredible game. Thank you, brother. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. Frank, Gaffney, Darren, Beattie, two of the heaviest guys, and I'm going to talk to Frank because it's Gaffney, who's one of the most serious guys I know, actually brought this concept to us. We're going to talk to Frank about that. We've got other things about the long war and everything he's been doing about the CCP, all next in the War Room.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back. Gaffney, you're obviously a beloved favorite of the War Room, but you're not a lot of laughs. You're a serious guy. I've known you for, 15 years longer. You're one of the most serious guys I know. You've been dedicated your life to the security of your nation. You've done probably more than any one individual I know about protecting this country and protecting its interests throughout the world. And I want to spend a few minutes on that for a turn to I would say more serious business, but I think you're right. And I want to tell everybody, I'm always man enough to say when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Gaffney brought this thing to me. I go, Frank, it's the War Room. People are serious. I got Chinese communists, but we don't do games. Trump's thing, no games. And he goes, no, you don't understand. The guy's building it. It's actually a heuristic device going to teach people. I go, Frank, they can read the Navarre report. Since we actually, over the 4th of July weekend, the people that got the game are sitting there going, it's kind of an awakening. They go, well, hang on. I'm starting to see how pieces fall together, how pieces interconnect. You're starting to have an awakening. And I'm telling you, if we ever get 1 million of these out, it'll change the nation. Because I'll tell you why. You're then going to have a lot of people who are not Trump fans, someone who you mentioned Donald Trump's name spit on the floor, are going to sit there and go, wow, I didn't know that. This is my own saying. I didn't know that. So look, I got to give you a hat tip. And you hung in there. As you know, I blew you off for the longest time saying we're too busy. We got that. But you were 1,000% right in your persistence. And people would tell me, my staff go, Gaffney's relentless. I said, look, I've known Frank for 15 years. When he gets, he's like a dog with a bone. When he gets on something, he's not going to give it. But I just want to recommend to everybody, go play it yourself. Here's what you do. You play it. And you play it with the family or people that know they're War Room guys. Play it one time yourself. You go, wow. It's interactive too. You can get the cell phone and do the updates, but the game itself, the core game, is so powerful. And it's in the news. It's not going away. People say, well, the election. No. Lindell next week is in court in Arizona. He's bringing a whole team. They're talking about an injunction to take the machines out. Remember, I'm not even a machine guy. I'm the ballots. They got me for, and they're saying a secret recording of Bannon. It's not a secret recording. I went around the country with Raheem Kassam. We gave, I think, 50 talks on Mark Elias and the voter integrity, the Transition Integrity Project. They told you how they were going to steal it with the mail-in ballots. That's what I was saying. So, Frank, once again, and go to electionfund.com. Everybody go there. Just check it out. We don't tell you got to buy something, but go there, check it out, see if it might be it. But, Frank, I want to give you a hat tip first before we get down to the other things you're working on. So thank you so much on the any comments, observations on the game?
Well, Steve, it takes a big man to say he's been wrong. And I just wish you'd stop being wrong with me. Just take my word for it. When I tell you to do something, do it. Okay, let's just cut to the chase. Listen, thank you for the plug for the game. You're absolutely right. Your excitement is infectious. It is going to, I think, change this country if we can get these games around to people, and not just, again, War Room Posse people, but people who are going to find this really educational because they don't listen to the War Room. They don't know what the truth is. They're going to find it out. And the coolest thing about this, Steve, is not only that it's just wildly entertaining. I mean, it is really fun and engaging, as Jay says. But beyond that, it can be updated endlessly thanks to these QR codes. The fact that you can go into those videos and update them with War Room segments or other investigations or breaking news or whatever else, this thing is going to have legs unlike any game in history. And I think everybody's going to want to be a part of helping spread the word, especially to those people who've been, as Jay said, gaslighting you ad nauseum about all of it. And by the way, it's mostly about the election. That's the sort of focus of it. But it's also about the Russia hoax. It's about the COVID-19 nonsense and Tony Fauci. It's about Hunter Biden's laptop. It just goes on and on. All of this stuff is documented, and you can share it with people who've been driving you crazy. What fun.
It's amazing. Okay, I want to let's talk about you had, and I want to make sure people understand we're going down two tracks here. And one of the reasons is this weekend I've got Jerome Revere was such a big hit with the audience today. I've actually rebooked him. Jerome's going to be back this Saturday with Ben Harmwell live from Rome, Jerome Revere. We're going to be talking about the Economist cover story, How to Win the Long War. And I'm actually going to get Frank Gaffney. We're going to lead up to that every day on Thursday and on Friday. We're going to have people. I haven't had a chance to talk to Frank, but some of the experts on community and present danger. This is this is the Economist. This is the global. Remember, this is the People magazine, or this is the tip sheet for if the Financial Times of London is the daily. This is the weekly, the most influential magazine in the world. Very important piece. Frank, what I'm really proud about is the War Room Posse is so far. When you read this, they're so far advanced in their understanding. And one of the reasons is the hits we have for you guys over at Centers for Security Policy, but also the Committee on the Present Danger, China. And I want to make sure people, particularly in scheduling, can get, you've got two paths you're going down. One, you're going down a path that we're talking about the CCP, and we're talking about the clearly the war we're in, the hybrid war. You just had this great webinar last week about the defense of the Western Pacific. And I put up on Getter this Bloomberg story that said, the Bloomberg story said, hey, look, Bannon and these guys are talking about chips, and chips are big. But if Taiwan was to fall, the American economy minimum would fall 10%. Minimum would fall 10%, which would be something as great as the Great Depression in this nation. And I think when you look at the math, it's actually less than that. But you've also started something. You just had the first one the other day, and I think this is absolutely essential. And you're going to do clips on it and a condensed version if people can't make the whole, but it's all free if you go to the webinars. You started one last week or this week earlier. That's about, I don't want to call it a fifth column, but that we must face an unpleasant fact between Wall Street, certain elements of our government, and corporations. There are guys that are actively working for the other team. And we got to call it out, because come this crushing defeat the Democrats are going to have in November, when we get into power starting in January next year, I know Jim Banks has got a plan, but we have to be on point. Talk to me about what you had this thing that kind of blew my head up. We did a pretty good job on the show, but you guys really drilled into it, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And then tell me quickly, we got a couple of minutes, that, and then going forward, how can people get access to it?
Great. Steve, well, listen, it's the greatest privilege of my life to be able to collaborate with you on helping educate the War Room Posse and the American people more generally. So thank you for the opportunity. Let me just say, what we've decided to do with this second series of webinars, the first is focused on the unrestricted warfare of the Chinese Communist Party against this country, aimed at destroying it, and I think making huge headway in doing so. But we complemented it starting yesterday with a new series of webinars, again, at presentdangerchina.org, that talk about USA betrayed. This is the fifth column. This is the elite capture. This is the cumulative effect of decades of corruption and suborning and, well, simply compromising our elites in every sector. It's obvious in academia. It's obvious in the media. It's obvious in Hollywood. It's obvious, most especially on Wall Street and other parts of the business sector. And increasingly, I think it's becoming pretty bloody obvious about our political class as well, Republican, sadly, as well as Democrat in many cases. And that's because the Chinese are deadly serious about taking us down, and they understand how powerful this tool can be. We need to understand who is compromised, who is going along to get along, perhaps, but whether they are deliberately selling out our country, as was the case with this strategic petroleum reserve, million barrels going off to the Chinese Communist Party, or whether it's Larry Fink at BlackRock, who is, interestingly enough, Steve, there was just a story yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, I believe it was, about how not just Chinese companies now have to have the Chinese Communist Party political commissars on their boards, but Western companies do too. So stands to reason Larry Fink, somewhere in his empire, has got a Chinese minder who's telling him perhaps things like, American investors ought to triple their investment in communist China, something that Larry Fink is pushing out dutifully. This is the sort of thing we're going to expose. It's going to be every week. We're going to shoot for Tuesdays at 1 o'clock. Present Danger China is where you register. Present Danger China is where you find the videos after they've aired. And please go to them, because the cumulative effect of both, especially with your help, is to, I think, equip the American people to fight the war that we're in with China.
We're going to push out all the clips. I just want to Frank on here to tee it up. And so Tuesday at 1 o'clock, if it changes, we'll let you know. But I want thousands of War Room Posse on there. Frank Gaffney, real quickly, your shows on Real America Voice, our other distribution partner, every night at 11. What's your social media, particularly Getter and True Social and Twitter?
I want to drive them to ccp@war.com, because there's a brand new book there that is entitled The CCP is at War with America. But also securefreedom.org is our website at the center. PresentDangerChina.org is our site at the committee. And not least, my own little one, securingamerica.tv, where you can see the show, if you miss it, at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Real America's Voice.
Thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. Thanks for changing your day around here. And thanks for sticking on with the game, because the game's going to be a game changer. No pun intended. Thank you, sir.
Amen. Bless you.
My next guest, I really want to appreciate changing his schedule around. I think we're going to try to have him on tomorrow morning, even more detail. But this story just broke in the New York Times, and it's a blockbuster. And your head, War Room Posse, your head will blow up, and particularly if you're aficionado of Revolver.news. And I just sent it to my great producer, Cameron, who'll get it to Memphis. Darren Beattie. I just got to read the headline, and we'll get it up in a second. But the headline, New York Times breaking story. And no, this is not a parody. I'm not reading from The Onion. Quote, "It's just been hell," end quote. Life as a victim of the January 6th conspiracy theory, starring the one and only Ray Epps. Darren Beattie, that is not from The Onion. That's from the New York Times. Take it away, sir.
No, this is incredible. It's ridiculous, but it's also hugely important and portentous. Just to contextualize things, there's one participant in the January 6th riot, one participant about whom the New York Times has written a sympathetic, glowing puff piece, and that is Ray Epps. It's pretty remarkable, and everyone needs to go to the Times and read this piece. But I just want to highlight some of the interesting things. So first of all, it says, "Oh, he's suffering. Ray Epps is suffering." It really downplays his involvement here. He said, "Oh, he traveled to Washington to back Mr. Trump, and he just went with his son because they were Trump supporters." Well, here's an interesting thing. So Ray Epps travels all the way from Arizona to D.C. because he's a Trump supporter, and he doesn't even go to Trump's speech. Instead, he's there on January 5th telling people to go into the Capitol. He's there in the morning of January 6th telling people to go to the Capitol. And instead of going to Trump's speech, he's hanging out right there by the initial breach point. And then 2 seconds before the breach occurs, he's right there by the bike rack fences and whispers into the guy's ear, who goes and knocks it down. There are other video clips on the Revolver stories as well of him saying to people, when we go in, leave this here. That's enough to constitute conspiracy in its own right. So the real remarkable thing is it's not just Revolver saying Ray Epps' behavior was egregious. Ray Epps' behavior on January 6th was so egregious that it caught the attention of the seditious hunters, these left-wing kind of Antifa type people who hunt down participants in January 6th. He was one of their original main targets. Ray Epps was one of the first 20 people put on the FBI most wanted list for January 6th. And in fact, the New York Times itself did a video documentary about January 6th called Day of Rage, in which Ray Epps is featured multiple times. Ray Epps, of all the footage they had, they chose Ray Epps 3 times to emphasize how the so-called siege on the Capitol was pre-planned and egregious. They play the clip of him saying, oh, some people had pre-planned it. And so all of a sudden, Ray Epps goes from being on the most wanted list, being the #1 target of sedition hunters, featuring as a star of the New York Times' own video documentary on the Capitol siege, to being quietly taken off the FBI most wanted list, to being the only January 6th participant that Adam Kinzinger will say anything positive about and protect, and to be the only January 6th participant about whom the New York Times writes an extended and absolutely ridiculous puff piece. How does that happen?
Here's the thing I don't get about the piece. I mean, they say Mr. Epps was not just a bystander on January 6th. He traveled to Washington to back Mr. Trump, was taped urging people to go to the Capitol, and was there himself on the day of the assault. But through a series of events that twisted his role, he became the face of this conspiracy about the FBI as it spread from the fringes to the mainstream. And I quote from the New York Times, obscure right-wing media outlets like Revolver News use selectively edited videos and unfounded leaps of logic to paint him as a secret federal asset in charge of a breach team responsible for setting off the riot at the Capitol. Were any of those, to your knowledge, or any of those videos selectively edited? It seemed like when you watch it, and we're going to put them back up tomorrow. When you watch them, I mean, it's Ray Epps sitting there talking to people right about doing this. Am I misrepresenting what was on those videos?
You're not misrepresenting at all. And in fact, the videos that Revolver put out, I really welcome Alan Foyer. Tell me which video is selectively edited. We'll post the whole thing, because they're the same videos in many cases that the New York Times included in its own video documentary about the insurrection. And so what did we do selectively? But there are even more important questions for the author of this piece, Alan Foyer. For one, if you read the piece carefully, the whole thing is designed to be this, don't look here, Ray Epps is just a victim. He's the only person we have sympathy for related to January 6th. He's a victim of these conspiracy theories that he was a Fed. Well, amazingly, in the entire piece, there is no explicit denial on the part of Ray Epps that he is associated with any kind of intelligence agency, or that there was any kind of monkey business going on in relation to January 6th. There is no blanket, point blank, explicit statement. All there is through the author of the piece, not even Epps himself, is a repeat of Epps' statement to the January 6th committee, which he issued through his lawyer, saying that he is not and has never been affiliated with law enforcement. And they're really leaning hard on the law enforcement, which opens up the possibility of Department of Homeland Security, a number of different intelligence agencies, military intelligence, JTTF, and various indirect cutouts of those organizations. So no blanket denial. And as far as I'm aware, I'd love clarification on this. The author did not ask him for a blanket denial, which we didn't get. Another interesting thing is Ray Epps was...
Go ahead.
Ray Epps was the lone person on January 5th promoting this plan to go into the Capitol. He was the only person. People were shocked and immediately identified this as suspicious Fed-like behavior. Did Alan Foyer, the author of this piece, ask Ray Epps, so what's the deal with this plan to go into the Capitol? How did this occur to you? As far as I'm aware from the piece, Alan Foyer didn't even ask him that.
No. But I've read a million of these pieces in my life. Okay, I did this at Breitbart professionally here at the War Room, working for President Trump. Here's what's also stunning about it. It's like Ray Epps came out of a petri dish on the morning of the 6th. There's no discussion of Ray Epps' background. Normally, right. January 6th, you'd go into the history of this guy. It just magically, Ray Epps is just out of a petri dish.
No mention
just
of
kind
his
of appears.
background.
Anyway,
no mention that he was a former president of the Arizona Oath Keepers. Nothing. But I'll tell you this. This is very important and very dangerous. What this signals is there's embarrassing information that's going to come out, and they're getting ahead of this, and they're going to do everything they can to make any conversation about Epps so toxic that you're blown out of the water for even mentioning his name. They're going full force on this, and so we need to get ahead of it. I want to come on tomorrow. I hope you'll have me on.
You're 100%. 100%. We're changing around the schedule in the show already. We're going to have this is big, and it's important. We have to get to the bottom of this. People if you're in the New York Times, they got to understand one thing. Starting in January, they're going to be real hearings to get to the bottom of all of it. You're not going to be able to and so FBI, DHS, all of it, preserve your documents. They're going to get to the bottom of all of it. Ray Epps, preserve your documents. We're just going to get to the bottom of it. And a puff piece in the New York Times is not going to wave anybody off. So anyway, it's just facts. Heck, I'd welcome Ray Epps to come on the show at any time and walk through. If it Ray's always open invitation for Ray Epps to come on and walk us through anything on any explanation he does. People, I'll give you a ton of examples of people say, "Hey, Bannon's fair, honest. He'll just let you talk." Darren, we're going to change the schedule around and have you back on tomorrow morning. I really appreciate you coming on here at the last second because it's so important. Okay,
thank you.
We got so much to get to. We had to shuffle the deck chairs today. Moving, I make sure you're back here at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We're going to have a big analysis of inflation. Also going to have Darren Beattie and all kind of other stuff. Check it out on Getter tonight. See what's going on tomorrow. See you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.